What is it? What is it that holds an atom together? What substance? What invisible force? Well, once it was believed that the atom was the single smallest unit of all matter in the universe, the most basic unit. And so it was named the atom, which means indivisible. There is nothing smaller. But that was proven, of course, to be untrue. The atom, you see, is not one, but it's many. The center of the atom, the nucleus, is made up of two smaller particles called protons and neutrons, which are each made up of 3 quarks and 3 gluons. And therefore, the smallest of atoms is actually a community of 13 particles. The DNA within just one cell of our body contains 6 billion atoms. That's 78 billion subatomic particles. And so you may not realize it, but you and I, even as we sit here in these pews, we are a buzz. Literally just a buzz. Our very cells, our blood, our skin, our bones, teem with billions of tiny particles all in connection with one another, racing in orbit around one another. There are many particles. And yet there is just one body. And yet the force, the substance which makes all of this possible, all of these separate entities coming together as one living human whole, well, that's unknown. It goes unseen. It's a mystery. Somewhere amongst those billions of particles that are us, held within the web of their miraculous myriad relationships, is our spirit, our soul, our life. The invisible connective something which makes life possible and not a collection of particles. When we die, of course, those atoms, they're still there. They are still there, but the soul is not. The soul is not of the atoms. The soul gives life to the atoms. And without it, this human whole, it reverts back to dust. At this moment, there are 7.3 billion people on this earth. 7.3 billion people on earth. It may seem like a lot, but that's actually far fewer than the atoms of just a single cell's DNA. These 7 billion that walk this earth, they're Jews and they're Greeks, they're Christians and they're Muslims, they're Hindus and they're Buddhists. They're black and white, brown and olive skin. Some are Chinese, some are Nepalese, some are Balinese. As Paul writes, we are as different from one another as an arm is from an eye and a nose and an ear. We are as different from one another as a proton and a quark and an electron. And yet, those are so united, the arm and the eye and the quark and the neutron, as to seem one body, indivisible, like an atom, inseparable. It is not so among the 7 billion people that walk this earth. So often we seem helplessly divided, nowhere near one. But are we doomed to always be divided? Or is there, in our human, just as there is in our human bodies, is there a spirit? Is there an invisible connecting force that can live in and connect our differences, which can make us one and give our communities life? Is there such a thing? Of course, I believe the answer is yes. There is such a thing, and it can be seen in the life of Francis of Assisi. Each year in October, many churches around this globe honor Francis of Assisi by blessing the animals as we have done today. Francis was known for his extraordinary love and his protection, of course, of animals. Legend has it that Francis intervened and brokered a deal between a much-hated and hunted wolf that threatened the village of Gubbio. The wolf, you see, needed food, but the villagers needed peace and security. So Francis got in between them and got them to agree. The town to feed the wolf and the wolf to leave the village at peace. It's a nice story. But who knows what really happened? Except that the church in Gubbio was renovated in 1872, and when they dug up the foundation, they found a large wolf skeleton there buried with honor alongside other human remains. But there's more to Francis of Assisi than his extraordinary love of animals. You see, he also demonstrated an extraordinary love of people. All people. People who were rich and poor, people who were sick, people that were vastly different than himself. One of the greatest examples of this extraordinary love occurred in the year 1219. At the time, Pope Innocent III started a crusade. He ordered Christians to take up arms and to militarily retake Jerusalem in the Holy Land. Francis opposed the idea that war was an act of faith. And so he traveled with the Crusaders all the way to Egypt, hoping to broker yet another peace, not between a wolf and a village, but now between Muslims and Christians. And in the lull in the fighting there in Egypt, Francis left the Christian camp. He crossed over into the enemy lines to gain an audience with the Sultan Malik al-Kamil. Francis hoped to win peace by converting the Sultan to Christianity, making them all one. He did not succeed. But he and the Sultan came away from that 3-week meeting with a deep respect for one another. And when Francis got back into the Christian camp, he called them to put down their arms, to cease the crusade, and to live harmoniously with Muslims. They did not, and they were destroyed. The life of Francis is a study of love. A love which knows no boundaries. A love which is so courageous that it is capable to cross divides and to conquer division with connection. An ability to see one another, as Francis did, whether the other be a person or an animal, a friend or a foe, and feel love, and have a sense in one's soul of compassion, and have that love and compassion dictate our actions towards the other, despite what differences we may have between us. That is the miraculous, unseen force that holds the many together as one, and out of which life is possible. Such love is the seat of the soul. It is the wick that keeps the spark of life burning. Where there is no love, soon there will be no life. Yet with it, within the light of love, there is, as Paul describes, no longer a distinction between Jew and Greek, and slave and free, or rich and poor, animal and human, Christian and Muslim. Within that love, the many can be one, like an atom, indivisible. And so today is a reminder of what is possible with a courageous, connective love in our hearts. For animals like the ones here today, they are so different from us. They don't speak our language. Their skin may be a different color than ours, nor have they been baptized as Christians. At least I don't think. Nevertheless, despite all of those obstacles, when we look at these animals, we see love. feel compassion, and so we are connected, despite those differences. That is the power of love, to cross and connect differences and divides. So is it really that possible to think that we can overcome our differences and connect in meaningful ways with the other 7.3 billion people of this world? I don't think it's impossible. Yes, those other 7.3 billion may not necessarily speak our language, nor have the same skin color as we do, or believe the same as we do. But it is a testimony of the animals present today that those differences can be overcome. And it will be overcome when we, like Francis, stop trying to convert everyone into our way of thinking in order to prove ourselves right, and instead simply love them. Simply love them and show them compassion. So let us learn from Francis. May we have that same courageous, connective love that lived in him, the same love that lived in Jesus, a love that calls our diversity good and which holds us and heals us into one human family. Amen.